Welcome to the Practical NLP podcast with me, Andy Smith. Catch up on previous episodes at nlppod.com. This week, NLP in negotiation. So if you've been listening to the podcast up till now, I'm wondering what you've learned from NLP already that might be useful in getting better results from negotiation. Here's a model for negotiation that I've called the 1-2-3-XL model. See how many of the NLP elements you recognize in it. Before we start, I will say that the most important thing you can do to improve your negotiating skills is to practice, so you build up positive reference experiences of being a good negotiator. We're going to look at negotiating as being a three-stage process. Preparation, the actual negotiation, and reviewing it afterwards to learn from it. The 1-2-3-XL model is spread across these three stages. First, preparation. Step 1. First position. What do you want? Before you go into a negotiation, it's vital to know your ideal desired outcome. This will give you the upper boundary of your negotiating position. What is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or BATNA as it's called? What could you get without negotiating? This will give you the lower limit or walk-away point of your negotiating position. If the BATNA is better in every way than what you could get from negotiating, you don't need to enter into negotiation. Chunk up to what's important to you about your desired outcome. Are these values shared by all the significant players on your own side? If not, chunk up further to what unites you. What other options could satisfy these values? Develop as many options as possible to avoid being stuck in a single negotiating position. Second position, what does the other side want? Learn as much as you can about the other side. If you don't have reliable information, put yourself in their shoes and imagine how things look from their point of view. What's their ideal desired outcome? What's their BATNA? What are the values behind their negotiating position? Are these values shared by all their negotiating team? Are there divisions you could use? What other negotiating positions could satisfy their values? The other side may not have thought of these yet. Anticipate possible objections to your proposals and think of ways to pre-frame them out. You'll be updating this information and filling in any gaps with information you get during the negotiating process. Third position. Look at the positions of the two sides from an objective viewpoint without attachment to the outcome. From this perspective, how important is it to maintain the relationship? What would be the future consequences of maintaining, strengthening, or dissolving the relationship? What would be the potential gains and losses? If the relationship is worth maintaining, what would be the best outcome for the relationship? You're looking for win-win-win. Win for you, win for them, and win for the system overall. What areas of agreement exist? What areas are still to be resolved? Plan how to discuss them. People tend to go into negotiations regarding the other parties as adversaries. So employ a different frame. What would the situation look like if the two sides were collaborating in finding a resolution? Now into the negotiation itself. The X stands for exchange. Everything that happens in the actual negotiation is potentially useful information that you can use to update your knowledge of the other side's position. At the opening of the meeting, establish rapport. Make sure you're negotiating with the right person, one who can make a decision. Ask something along the lines of, if we discuss this today and we decide that we can reach some sort of agreement, will you need to consult someone else to get their approval, or are you able to make that decision yourself today? If the approval of another person is needed, you need that person to be present at the negotiation. Explore the outcomes and values behind their negotiating position by using an as-if frame. If we were to arrive at some sort of agreement, what would that look like? Early on, establish the areas of agreement and summarize any progress made up to this point. Emphasize shared interests and shared values. State the areas to be resolved. As areas of disagreement or objections come up during the negotiation process, probe for the outcomes and values behind them. Develop win-win options that dovetail the desired outcomes and values of both parties. Get agreement on the best option. And close. Summarize the agreement and agree on an action plan. Now here are some common tactical errors in negotiation and what you can do instead. First one is opening with your minimum acceptable position or close to it. This is a classic error of inexperienced amiables or people pleasers when they try to negotiate. Deep down they're worried about being rejected and that the other person won't like them, which means that someone who doesn't care about being liked can walk all over them. So remember, once you've gone down, you can't go back up again. Instead, open with your ideal position. Error number 2, taking rejection personally. They're rejecting or objecting to your proposal or some part of it, not you as a human being. If you notice yourself having a pattern of being concerned about this, being cleared about your desired outcome will help. Third error is not maintaining your own state. Excessive adrenaline produces the fight, flight, freeze response, which is not conducive to win-win outcomes. Fear and anger states reduce your ability to reframe, put things in perspective, develop new ideas, and absorb new information. So maintain a positive state by centering, by using peripheral vision, by dissociating when you need to, and by being kind to your body generally. Fourth error is losing rapport. Examples of how to lose rapport would be using judgmental language about your opponents or their proposals. This is a laughable offer. Or making accusations. You're being really obstructive. Instead, use I language that takes responsibility for what you're saying and talk about consequences and how you feel about them. A figure as low as that will not provide an incentive to invest, and I feel concerned about the long-term viability. Notice that statements about how you feel can't be contradicted. Another example would be using personalizing language. So talk about that offer rather than your offer if you need to raise objections. Also, explicitly label your suggestions and questions to help the other side see them as just that, rather than a sneaky tactic. Let me ask a question at this point, or I'd like to offer a suggestion. A fifth error is framing the negotiation as a fight rather than a collaborative search for a solution. If you aim to crush your quote-unquote opponent, even if you succeed, the best you can expect is the 3 R's: remorse, resentment, and revenge. The classic example Gregory Bateson gives in Steps to an Ecology of Mind is the Treaty of Versailles after the First World War, where the victorious Allied powers humiliated the defeated Germany with a treaty so harsh that it created the conditions for the rise of Nazism and another world war within 20 years. Instead, you can frame the negotiation as a shared search for solutions. You can ask for help in developing options for mutual gain, present a number of options for the other party to select from, or agree standards for selecting an option. If the other side present unacceptable options or appear to be fighting dirty, it can help you to separate the positive intentions behind their behavior from the behavior itself. Just like you, they're doing the best they can. What can you do to make it possible for them to act in a more acceptable way? One more error: negotiating with your team in front of the other team. If you make divisions obvious, it's easy for the other team to exploit them. If you need more time, ask for a recess. Here are some more useful negotiation tactics from NLP. Anchor any states that occur for later use. Pre-frame your proposals with reasons and explanations, rather than making the proposal and giving the reasons for it afterwards. Give at most 2 strong reasons for your proposal, rather than a whole list of reasons. The more reasons you give, the more opportunity the other side has to select the weakest reason and object to it. One way of handling an objection is to ignore it and act as if it never happened. If the other side doesn't raise it again, it was a tactic on their part rather than a genuine objection. Use the agreement frame, so you can say, I agree, or respect, or appreciate, and, rather than But test your understanding and, more importantly, re-establish rapport by paraphrasing. So if I'm understanding this correctly, you're concerned about our long-term commitment to the project. Use the backtrack frame to summarize what's been agreed so far, stopping before any current sticking point. Remind the other side of shared interests and values and outcomes. Chunk up for agreement. Now the review stage. Learn from what happened. What went well? What will you definitely do again next time? What will you do differently next time? With anything that went wrong, what do we need to learn from this? Where you've encountered unexpected objections, develop ways of pre-framing them out next time. Here are a couple of excellent books on negotiation. Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher and William Ury. This isn't an NLP book, but it's kind of the standard book for negotiation. And an NLP book, Influencing with Integrity by Jeannie Z. Laborde. This has a good chapter on negotiations. I'll put links for those books on the show notes. That's it for this week's podcast. Remember, you can see the show notes for this episode at nlppod.com, and you can download back episodes you may have missed from the online store at webstore.nlppod.com. See you next time.